All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Grand Prairie PD podcast. Now, where you can see our pretty smiling faces.
Yeah.
Here with KD and our crisis support unit. Got Officer Greg with us and Officer Randall.
Welcome, guys. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I thought two men who are as follically challenged as I am might be a little more hesitant to get on camera, but
One of us is still holding on, though.
is that holding on or is that denial?
It's natural. What's that song? I think you better let it go.
Oh, no.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go.
That's how you know kids right there. See?
Yeah.
Mustache is on point, though.
That's true.
Like always.
Yeah.
Since he was like 12.
I like the stash.
I think that's right.
Probably is.
All right, well, we're gonna jump in, talk about the unit that you both are a part of, the crisis support unit. Now, you're both the only two sworn officers in the unit, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I don't know if by this time our episode with Courtney and Emily will have aired, but actually, Greg, I'll just let you kind of jump in and explain a little bit about what y'all's unit does, and then we'll kind of dig into y'all personally a little bit.
Well, we started, I want to say about 5 years ago. Courtney got here, and then I got assigned over. I was in the community services with what KD's doing now, and then got assigned down there with her and eventually transferred over, and we started building from there and got Randall. So since then, we've grown to 2 officers and 2 clinicians, I guess, 3 clinicians. One's still getting their master's.
Okay.
So we're basically a co-responder teams. I'm paired up with Courtney, and we'll go out and follow up on calls where the guys have had mental health interactions with individuals on the street. They'll close out a call with MH call sign or something, and then it'll come to us every morning about 6 a.m. We get a big printout. So we'll triage all those calls, start trying to go back out and touch and contact those individuals and offer resources. Try to get them to the resources or try to get them to mental health help. We've even gone so far to offer to give rides to the doctor, so somebody can go get their medicines. So basically, co-responder teams, we deal with that. Now, branching out a little bit outside the co-responder teams, peer support, internal, and then working with the internal mental health of the police department, and which recently we've added some firemen on with us. So branching into basically first responders and trying to create a mental health unit for the first responders at Grand Prairie and keep their mental health up, keep their well-being up. And
now, how much of a hands-on role are y'all taking in that situation?
It depends.
On the internal stuff.
Yeah.
On the internal
Depends on
stuff?
what's going on.
Yeah. So as a peer support, if you wanted to and come and talk to me, then we'll meet up in a hallway or somewhere, or just casually meet in there, or maybe got eyes on you, or somebody else might tell us something's going on with an individual, and then walk by and just try to check up on you and say, hey, how you doing today? And then see what response you get, and just maybe talk to them for a little bit. And from there, whatever response you get, maybe try to lead them into some resources, whether it be counseling or just, letting it off their shoulders. And then the educational part coming into, because, we're caught up in teaching the mental health peace officer portion, some of the CIT portions of it. And then, I can't even think of all the rest of that, that we get involved in. SISM, we just got finished with a bunch of training there. So, for instance, we've responded to some other local agencies that have had some problems to go and deal with their people on the resources.
Gotcha.
Like we went down to Italy after that massive incident in Italy. We went down to meet with all the first responders that were there.
So who dictates, where y'all go? Like going to Italy, do they reach out to us?
There's like a regional, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a regional response type program that whoever can go, they try to grab us, whatever people that are correspond with, dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, everybody that was involved in whatever critical incident it was. They try to get a rep of each one of those facets.
And it could be, so like you said, we got somebody that'll maybe get a phone call and then say, hey, here's my team, and we're on a big regional team. Or the chief reaches out to another department and tells you how great you are and volunteers you up. So I think that's how most of them, it'll be just our chief doing his job, reaching out to other chiefs going, hey, I got a team. And then we'll go from there and start corresponding with other teams in the area to see if anybody else is in contact with them or who needs to go over there. So it's amazing. Like I think the Italy deal, been doing this for a while in law enforcement, but how many people that one incident can affect. And I think when we sit down, I'm going to tell you it's about 30 to 40 people when it comes to first responders, between that one, the sheriff's department, the state, the locals, your dispatch, your fire, your volunteer fire department, the attorneys,
constables,
whoever responded. The DA's office who had responded. And
so not just police.
No, it was everybody at that scene.
Yeah.
So kind of take that, and then we sit down with a big meeting to kind of educate everybody on the process of what's going on and the effects of what's going on with them. Yeah. And then from there break off into different groups and take people who were at the scene and people who were on the perimeter, so different effects, and try not to traumatize people, that weren't there. So you come into the scene, or you came into the meeting, all of a sudden I start throwing out graphic images of what I seen, and you didn't see that. Now I've
kind of
traumatized you.
Cross-contaminating the trauma, for lack of better words,
Okay.
That would suck.
Yeah.
Talk about one thing and
like, well, I certainly didn't see that, but now I have. So
yeah.
It's going home to your families. You go home and you talk to your wife and you're like, hey, look what I saw today, and you start describing a scene that she's not prepared for. Now you've given her secondary trauma, because now she has an image in her head of what
happened.
She can't close it out because you got to see everything, and maybe we can deal with it. But now she's going to formulate her own images. So it's vicarious trauma in there.
I think us trying to avoid that for a lot of years has probably led to some of the issues that we have.
Yeah,
where it's like, because
100%. Yeah,
you always hear guys say, "I don't tell my wife anything." Then we don't really express it or handle it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing now and learning through all this processes. And we've said it, and I've heard it, but like the fire department kind of deals with it a little better, not knowingly. But look at our jobs. We ride a one-man unit. We get in a call. I meet you on a call. Something happens. We deal with that call, whatever it be, the trauma we have, and we get back in the car and we run to another call. Fire department, they go to a call, they handle that call. Typically, they get to clear, go back to the station, and then sit around the table. And
they're all together. They're together,
and they get to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and we hit the next call. So
say we hit N6 or whatever it is, and on to the next call.
So it's kind of nice that if that you reach out, you start learning your buddies on the street, and then you reach out and say, hey, meet me over here, and then you just, man, that was kind of messed up, and you start talking about the call. Well, at least then you're starting to process through the call, not knowingly, but process through it to get rid of some of that trauma that you're dealing with, and then KD turn around and it was, and you just, but we don't have that opportunity all the time. 2-man units, yeah. But
when I first got here, the department was it was before y'all's unit at all, but I think they were kind of seeing the benefits of talking through stuff, and they had, like, whenever you had a critical incident, everybody would kind of powwow at the end of the day that was involved in it. But it was like there was one, I don't know if I mentioned it to y'all, but where someone burned alive in a car, and they were super intoxicated, and basically they were alive when it happened, and so you were seeing that, but there was nothing that could physically have been done to save them. And they asked everybody, hey, how do you feel about this? Everybody have any thoughts about it or anything? And if any, I think everybody here's probably experienced something similar. Everybody has thoughts. If you see something like that, hear it and smell it, and you don't have those thoughts, and there's probably something clinically wrong with you.
Right.
But every single person in the room was just like, no, we're good.
Yeah, no one's going to say anything at that time.
And
of course we've had thoughts.
Right, and I was one of them. Right.
Of course we're still thinking about it, especially now you just brought it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
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 But that, I mean, it's that old footage or mentality of don't say anything, suck it up.
Well, I say that because I think it's cool to see how things are progressing, because it obviously wasn't a need that was identified and effort was made. It was probably just not executed in the best, just from lack of training and lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's cool seeing kind of how things are developing, going from that. 'Cause it's been a few years since I've been on the street, to kind of where we're headed now, and it's more of a personalized, targeted approach.
Well, I think even when the military started to finally recognize that PTSD is not, it's not a end all, right? I mean, it can be if it's not treated right.
Right.
If it just progresses.
That's big for us to know too.
Right. But no one was ever talking about, when I first started, as a police officer, no one ever was talking about PTSD, and how it relates to police officers. And then it's like, well, yeah, if you're on patrol, every day you could come across something, and most days you do.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the difference is, at least for like people like me, you hear, like, you start off as a police officer, especially the years that we all started as cops. There were 2 wars going on at the time, and a lot of the guys you're working with were serving in those wars, coming back, and you're hearing these stories, you're seeing the movies, you're seeing the footage or whatever of these guys who are going and serving in these other countries, and the stuff they're seeing. And so if you feel some kind of way about your police work, but then you're like, oh, shit, I was just talking to Randall, and he lost his best friend after he got his leg blown off in front of him. And it's like, he might have PTSD, but like, it's almost like I don't have a right to have that issue.
There was a lot of that for sure.
Yeah.
Where like you're running code somewhere, and you don't think about just running code somewhere and just depending on what's on the other end of that call,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That in and of itself can be freaking traumatic, if you think about it.
Yeah, and it affects us differently as we grow. Like I said, I've done this 34 years.
34.
So, maybe another one, I don't know. But 34 years. So I mean, there's a lot of things you've seen, done, experienced, right? But things have changed. You think about when you started as a young cop and you came in, and what was going on in your life. You are. So, but with your life, if you entered this job, you didn't have kids, and then all of a sudden you've got the first child, the second child. Your thought process changed once you got that child. Things were different. One day you didn't really care too much, then the next day, everything's important.
Right.
So, or we get those calls, and it involves a child. Now, it affects us even more.
Yeah.
So, how do we deal with that? How do we get these guys in there?
I'll tell you what, it affected my risk taking. And I had my oldest kid whenever I first hired on my first department. And I don't know if it's an age thing, or what, or maybe just kind of an accumulation of seeing everything. But I was a complete risk taker. I mean, I kind of had the opinion, like, if I get mine at work, like, my wife's gonna get paid, family's gonna be good. Like, I'm doing what I believe in. It is what it is. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But I said I don't care. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
But then as kind of my career has progressed, I've continued to have 40 more kids.
41.
My perspective has changed a little bit in that now it's like I actually think about it, which I think can be a good thing and a bad thing. But I found it interesting that I had a kid when I started, but just as my career has progressed, I still am a little bit more cautious, a little bit more thinking through. Yeah. Like, I think about some of the doors I've busted through, and it's like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we did that when I was younger, and then on the SWAT team, I didn't have the kids.
Right.
It didn't bother me to run through a door, and it was more of adrenaline flowing.
Yeah.
And now you're like, what's it worth?
Right.
So,
stopping that one more car,
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
Now it's
Let's
the blinders
focus
on.
on-
Let's just
yeah.
go. Let's just go.
Yeah, so we just got to be. I mean, we got to be able to talk about it, man, and deal with it and look around. And we all rib each other.
Oh, yeah.
We pick on each other and we tease each other, man. And most time in good faith, but sometimes we got to look out and watch each brother and sister's back, and then notice that the emotions that they're having.
Yeah.
So,
and I think a lot of that too, that the ribbon and the cutting jokes and cutting it up, and I think that's how we cope sometimes too.
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure.
That bizarre sense of humor that cops seem to have, and whether it's appropriate or not, that's kind of our way of, all right, just let's look at the brighter things in life and let's try to laugh a little bit.
Yeah, my wife hates it so much.
Dark humor.
It's not even dark. I don't know. I just like there's almost a funny side to almost everything. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I tend to make jokes about things that are.
Maybe it's just the timing.
No, you're probably like me.
There's
always a punchline
like,
somewhere down the line.
Yeah, the streamline or the highway between my brain and my mouth is no stoplights. Yeah, it just.
Jeez.
Yeah,
straight on through.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's
we'll deal with it on the back end.
Yeah, so like I said, being in this unit doing what we do now, man, it's been a blessing.
Yeah.
And I was having this conversation the other day with somebody, and I said, if all I can do through my goals here, if I can leave this department and this profession better than when it was when I got in it, then I'd be happy. Is it me doing it? No, but if we can all get there and start understanding it, and I'll tell you this, I'm really proud of the men and women at Grand Prairie. Right? Yep. And I'm seeing other agencies and things like that, but I'm really proud of Grand Prairie because I think a bunch of people have opened it up, embraced it, and realized how much benefit they can get from counseling, just talking. You don't always have to go to a counselor. You could be just talking to KD and get it out. But we got to be able to talk about it after, we talked about this, and not to get into people's personal business, but Officer Sy that died, that was a traumatic incident that happened here, and of course AJ and all that in the last 4 or 5 years. So, but with Sy, we hit all the briefings. We talked about some things. We tried to hold a debriefing, talk about some things, and then I was really proud that at least I think we counted, man, about 13 individuals on their own just went and got counseling. Now who went, I don't know. I just know a number, and that's all that matters. If 13 people went, 20 people went this year, it's all that matters. People are getting help and getting that off their shoulders. Yep. And, they've all started doing EMDR, and guys will tell you, you've been in briefings and we'll talk, and all of a sudden somebody will stand up and talk about, oh, it's great. EMDR, man, it's black magic. It's voodoo, whatever. They can't explain it, but
that's what it sounds like to me. Yeah.
Huh?
That's what it sounds like to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're like. Man, it's just I don't know what happened, but the world was lifted off my shoulders, and I'm fine now. Or and they're going back for a follow up, but that may be it. And so it's not like a lifetime of counseling, but they're able to process those thoughts. And we've got a good group of counselors that we're sending people to that are former law enforcement, military, so they kind of get the job.
And I think just the fact that we have Courtney and Emily and some of the other folks that are in there hitting those briefings and or debriefings, and just letting them know right off the bat what to look for. Hey, these are the signs of trauma,
right?
And this is what to expect if you start to experience them. It's not just so that that's what it is.
Yeah,
and kind of give everybody a heads up. And I think that's super important, and I think that kind of brings the unknown down to a manageable level, because they if they start to experience those things, they were already told about it. And
well, and you can have it normalized, or be like, okay, I'll go to counseling if I need it. But like me, I was one of the ones that it was like, if I need it, I'll go. Like, I don't care. I'm not prideful. But then you might not, if you're not instructed, you're not going to pick up on the short-temperedness. It's obvious if you wake up yelling or sweating in your sleep, thinking about dying or somebody else dying. Yeah, no shit. Like, that's obviously a problem. Yeah. But it's it's for me anyway. It's the snappiness. I want this done now. Like, do it now. Kind of being on edge, like you have to be at work or whatever. which is a good thing at work, but then not at home, and some of those things. If someone fills you in on that, you see that or you do it, you're like, okay, this is a problem. This is
way more self-aware. You're like, oh
Right.
yeah, this is a. This is
Well,
what
like
they're
me, I
saying.
just thought I was it's like I not I was, but there was a reason for it.
Well, yeah, but you carried that home.
Yeah,
Even
sure.
though, and the same that we all been told, hey, leave your family life at home when you get here and leave the job here when you get home.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way. So,
There's no magic switch.
yeah. And so I think it's a good process, to listen to some of this stuff. And I encourage everybody, man, to get more and more training because we got to, and even that we're trying to do things now. The unit, right? They've got an event coming up where they're going to do it for the family. So the spouses are involved in this. So they're trying to get the spouses involved now. And part of that's not so much to bring them up here and be touchy-feely. It's to give them education on how to decompress on some stuff. And then when I get home and I need that moment, just let me be for 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Right.
And then we'll reset, come back in there and be family life.
Yeah, super important.
Yeah, and maybe your drive home. You just want 20 minutes to drive home,
Zone
and
out.
quiet in the car, and maybe some good music or
Unless
whatever.
you get stuck in traffic, then
That's different. Different trauma.
then that extends the time at home.
I will drive so far out of my way. Like I will put miles in my car to not sit in traffic.
Yeah, I've done that.
Like if there, I don't something
For the sanctity of my family when I get home, I've done that.
yeah, dude, I absolutely hate being stuck in traffic.
See,
Yeah.
I'm
at
that
work,
guy
don't
that
care.
does the old NASCAR thing where you zoom out, zoom in. 'Cause I'm trying to look and see. I'm
Still
not going
sucks.
out of my
This is the reason I drive extra.
Yeah, he gets over 5 inches to see there's cars in front of me. That's why I'm stuck here. Yeah. It's not just the one in front, man.
I know, right?
I wanted to talk. You mentioned about what your unit's doing as a whole. I wanted to get into the unit a little bit before we talk about y'all individually, because one of the things talking to Courtney and Emily, they talk about how basically they respond to these incidents, mm-hmm. and they feel safe. They wear body armor, whatever, but they feel safe because y'all are the uniformed escorts and y'all take care of them. But from y'all's perspective, how nerve-wracking is that? Because I would hate that. Like the idea of having to keep someone alive that can't keep himself alive in a gunfight.
The first couple times where your attention gets divided between, hey, I have this civilian that's behind me that I'm in charge of protecting, and now I'm dealing with someone who's has mental health going on in front of me.
Right.
So that took a little bit to get used to, but the more they became, I guess, trained and spun up to, and we spun them up pretty well before they come out, but it's they know when to approach and when to back away, and so now they're helping us not divide our attention so much.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind
Am
of
I
like
saying that right?
Yeah. I try to put myself in always in between. But I think in the beginning, Courtney's done this for a long time. She was a dispatcher before she got in here. So she did it at another agency and then came over here. So training her was a little easier. Emily, she walked in here, man, as vibrant as could be and wanted to be right there.
Right.
And it's like I said, watching changes,
always,
and hopefully they don't come back and slap me later. But watching changes. That,
no one's gonna. This isn't gonna go anywhere.
No,
It's a safe place.
That's good. So
counted
she was there, and now to watch both of them because they both had their first child since they've been here with us.
Right.
And so just to watch them now, it's kind of like they back off right more. Right. Emily was right here, and now she's back here waiting. So it's great. We teach them that. But I find myself, and I think Rich is the same way, is now when they start talking. If they're talking, all I'm doing now is I'm just reading body, man, watching and waiting for that moment, and I think anticipating in how I'm going to handle this when you do jump. As long as you don't get to them, that's all that matters to me, right?
See, I went out with Randall and I did that. I made sure he was in between me and that pit bull.
Yeah, you did. You sure did.
It was a Chihuahua.
And it was at that moment that I found out Katie don't like dogs.
I was like, bro, you got it. I'm back here.
I think they call it a pug.
Yeah, okay. Well, I didn't want no part of it.
And then when we have high risk follow ups, there's always two of us, or we
that's my next
we get
question.
a patrol unit out there, so
Yeah.
we have an extra set of eyes just because whether there's a weapon involved or there's some sort of scenario happened where it elevated the risk level, so we always have two officers there.
Right.
Yeah. If we know going in it's somebody we've dealt with, typically there's two minimum, and sometimes it'll be us together, or we'll borrow patrol. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. Like I said, we're trying to grow to get to a 4 or 5 man team,
Right.
and unfortunately, we're going backwards. So,
Part of that's my fault.
Yeah, it's Randall's. So it's all Randall's fault.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
So
I'm deploying.
Oh, you selfish bastard.
I know.
yeah, so
Still
Randall's
serve your
deploying,
country.
and I've got him for I don't know about 9 more days, 30 minutes or something like that. And,
Hold on, let me check my calendar.
yeah, so he'll be gone, and then it's back to me, and so we'll see where we go from there.
It'll be all right.
Yeah. He'll just reach out to us, and
I'll call
come,
KD.
I'll come down the stairs and say,
Right.
let's go.
So,
Are there dogs?
Yeah.
as long as there's no dogs, we're good.
Yeah.
Katie's always down to help. But
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
question is, their dogs
Yeah.
going to be there?
Right. Okay, so obviously you're in the military. Why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of your journey and how you start off and how we wind up here?
In GP?
Yeah, I mean just in general,
Yeah.
law enforcement, your role.
Well, yeah. So I joined the Marines when I was 20, and I did about 4 years active duty with 1st Marines out in San Diego, Camp Pendleton. Got out, moved to Minnesota, became a cop.
Too cold.
Yeah.
Too cold.
Oh yeah.
Was up there for about almost 9 years, and then I just remember sitting on a freeway one day, and it was like 20 below. It was on a Sunday, and I was on a wreck. And I was like, "This is it. I'm done. This is too cold."
Yeah.
So
What's the coldest it got?
about 30 below, and then the wind's blowing too, so about 40. That was the coldest.
Okay, hold on. Stop.
That's too
It's
cold.
not always like that, but there's been times where because the Arctic winds come down from Alaska and Canada
Yeah.
and swoop down, grab through the Twin Cities where I was at.
If where I'm living, you can bring Alaskan anything into the conversation, I'm too far north.
Yeah. Well, it took me a little while to realize.
The city doesn't shut down at 0 degrees?
No.
Like here at what, 31?
Well, they had
we're done.
they're equipped for that. They're equipped to handle that. They're not equipped to handle that stuff down here.
Yeah, but how do
Clearly.
you equip a person? Like you're sitting on a freeway. Like what do you? I mean,
Here's some mittens.
'cause you still got to be able to get to your gun and use your gun, obviously.
Well, you
gotta
ain't
take
using your
mittens off.
gun when it's 20 below outside.
Yeah, you got to use your mittens.
Yes, there's no,
I mean, you
nobody else is
can,
out.
but you're not. I mean, frostbite kicks in pretty fast.
Yeah. Self burglary up there, man, is self correcting. Burglary
right.
is.
Follow the tracks in the snow.
You-
Looks like I got in a car.
You jump out to break into a house and can't get in fast enough and die.
Well, I was on SWAT. I was on SWAT up there, and when we do warrants, we get out of the rig, and as soon as we get outside, all our fancy schmancy goggles would fog up.
Yeah.
Right.
Off they go. Or if you're outside and then you hit the house, then they'd fog up when you hit the house because you're outside going to warm.
Right. of
Yeah.
course.
So they're worthless.
That sucks. So how did you wind up? How do you get from Minnesota?
So I went from Minnesota to Oklahoma for a little bit. I thought I wanted to live in local Oklahoma and realized that that was not the case.
What was the issue? Tornadoes or rednecks?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both, yeah. So
I can ask that. I got friends up there.
Oklahoma's cool, just not
Not for
not
you.
for me.
Yeah.
Took me about a year and a half to figure that out.
Not nearly as long as the cold.
And then I ended up in Texas. So
I
and
just
then
went up in Grand Prairie specifically.
So I heard of. So I have a couple buddies from the Marines that live down here. And one worked for Dallas, and the other one worked for Arlington at the time, and then Attorney General's office. And they're like,
Oh, cool.
They're
Yeah.
like, Grand Prairie's the place to be. So. Like they wouldn't even advocate for their own departments. They're like Grand Prairie, Grand
Right,
Prairie.
yeah.
I'm telling you, I love
Like,
to hear
alright.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I used to work for a department that I didn't advocate for either.
So I
Yeah.
applied, and here I am. And in the meantime, I got out of the Marines and tried to do some Marine reserves. It just wasn't the same. And then
Yeah.
ended up in the Army National Guard while I was in Oklahoma. And then so I've been in the National Guard for about 11 years.
Very cool. That's not an uncommon thing for Marines to.
Well, if you're in the infantry, it's an easier transition because in the Marines, in the reserves, it's
like Shreveport, isn't it?
Yeah, all the infantry units are spread out. There's not too many of them across the nation, so it's harder to find. Where if you're in a guard unit, they're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well,
so what about you, Greg?
Yeah, I want to.
I know you served in a different capacity.
Where's that? My journey to get here.
Oh hell. Let's see. Do we have enough time?
Yeah, go ahead. Podcast, man. I grew up here in Grand Prairie, so I was born in Dallas and moved to Grand Prairie probably 5 years old and back in 72. So grew up in Grand Prairie. Stayed here. My dad had left when I was about 5 and moved to Florida. So that's where the journey begins that everybody finds interesting, I guess, man. Go back and forth, bouncing back, the traditional family. So bounce back and forth to Florida, Grand Prairie, do this. Attended, I don't know, man, numerous schools. Right? Yeah. I think about one school for every year of education. I think 13 different schools in between there, somewhere between elementaries, 3 junior highs, 2 high schools.
That's hard to make friends.
Yeah. So I don't need friends.
I was wondering, I was like, are you getting kicked out or it's just a
like 17 yearbooks at his
story,
house?
Man. Huh?
The 17 yearbooks
different story.
No, I mean, it was a single mom raising 3 boys.
Right.
So we lived where we could, and we grew up here. And like I said, and then I'd go live with my dad in Florida. And at one point in time, I think that you missed out on it. Did that, and by 13, I was probably working doing construction jobs. And then at one point in time, I went with my dad because he went down there, and then he had joined the circus. So I traveled around with Ringling Brothers Circus for a little while. My dad was a lion tamer for Ringling Brothers.
What?
Yeah. So
Bro, I never knew that.
How could you not know that? That's my favorite part.
So
did you go in there with the little whip things?
No, not then. There's pictures. I was telling my mom the other day. It's like, where's the photo album? There's pictures of me about 5 years old in the cage.
Lion?
Yeah, I'm right next to a lion.
Like he just got tired of you and threw you in the cage.
Yeah, he walked out. So he's like learning to swim. Sink or swim, man. So he's holding me, but I'm right in the cage with him next to the lions, man. So, so we did that for a while, and then ended up back in Florida when he got out of there, and finished school. Well, went to school and then came back home. So I joined the Explorers. My journey to be a cop, and that was prior to being a DJ that you talked about last time, man, was, I was a DJ in nightclubs going through high school.
That's what I was talking about. That was your service to your community.
That was my service to community. Yeah. So I was a DJ in some of the top clubs in Dallas area, between Grand Prairie, Arlington, Dallas, Fort Worth. Travel around. This is in high school, so that's how I was earning my money to go to high school and help mom.
Can you tell me your name, your DJ name?
No, I had too many of them. So
he's lying.
DJ Mullet.
So there was no mullet, but
I know what it is.
But
what is it?
It was just DJ New. So
that's not true.
No. So we even had a night. There was a local establishment in Arlington. It's no longer there. They had brought up new music night, and I'm playing, right? So they hired me specifically for that and giving away a Jeep and all this. Kid Craddock, when he was with the Eagle, came in and would do this. That was where he started before he got to 106.
No kidding.
Yeah, or Kiss FM. But yeah, so he came in and he was just a young DJ back then, and we did some stuff and gave away all that. But a guy asked me, he was like, "Hey man, are you playing new music?" It was like back there, like the not R&B and dance music. It was more the club style. And I was like, no, man, it's new music night. I'm Greg New. So it's kind of a journey to get there, man, and how you become a cop, right? So me and my buddy going to high school.
You're a DJ in what years?
In those years? Yeah. That was back in 85, 86, around 85, man, because I was finishing up in school, and I'd work till 2 o'clock in the morning, get up and come home and go to school.
I'm amazed that you were able to do that job and then pass the polygraph to actually
that's a different story, man. So
what were you doing, like birthday parties and stuff to start?
Yeah, I mean, some of that came up in my background, when because of things that happened at the bar, but prior to that, so in high school I became an explorer with Grand Prairie. So I was out there with a couple other officers who have already retired from here, and we were all explorers back in high school, and that's what I wanted to do. You know, a buddy of mine in Florida, our goal was to finish school, move to Colorado, where his dad was the sheriff. We were going to become cops, you know, and so that didn't happen. I moved back home. It's Grand Prairie. I was actually DJing. I was supposed to do a show one night, and worked with a guy named Baron Bacon. He was with the 107.5 radio at that time, and before it became all jazz. And so I would travel around with him and do shows with him. And unfortunately, man, I got a call from Florida go, hey, you want a job? So I packed up my bags and moved to Florida and started in construction business to go to the police academy. Called my buddy up, said, hey, I'm going to the academy. You ready? I'm taking the test. No, I'm going to be a fireman. So he hosed out on me, man. Yeah. So
Stop.
that's what happens. So so he became a fireman, and he's retired, and he started after I did. Everybody I've worked with retired. And I think everybody I worked with.
I think most people of your tenure hang it up.
They have, man. They have. I started off in Kissimmee, in Kissimmee, Florida, back in 1988, and stayed there up until 95, and had some things happen there. So, when I moved back home, and came down here and took the test a couple of times, and they weren't as nice to us as like they were when y'all come. You fly in 5 times and take the poly, take this. So I took the test and decided to move back. At that time, I had met my wife. We weren't married at the time, but I was going through that process and told her, and I mean, it's just so worked out that I got married, and Sergeant Hunter, he was great, just an officer at the time doing my background. Mm-hmm. Sergeant Hunter had called me up and said, hey, I want to get your polygraph. When can you come? And I was like, well, I'm getting married Saturday. So Saturday I got married, and Sunday I was on the road to do a polygraph on Tuesday in Texas. So, and my wife stuck with me since then, man. It's been 28 years. So, that's the journey back home. Right. And, so I wouldn't trade anything. Like I said, 34 years, I'm not ready to go yet. And, even though the guys ask you, when are you leaving? And I'm like, when I get ready.
Well, you're not a typical old head.
Yeah.
You're an old head, but you're not like.
Not the old heads that I remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, because, for instance, I've seen you at jiu-jitsu a number of times. That was weird.
Yeah, have you seen KD there?
No. He only likes to be in environments where he can push everybody to work out the stuff that he's good at. He doesn't want to get outside of his comfort zone, which is great for cops. It's really good attitude.
That's terrible.
Oh, it is. It's sad, man. It's true.
We'll get him out there.
Yeah.
But no, like seeing you out there, and I know, I assume anyway, that's a fairly recent development, and
it is. Us, Chief and the rest of the guys that are there, we started up. I'm proud of that, that they've started the program here, and I was able to jump in on the jiu-jitsu thing a little over a year. I mean, what we've had about a year and a half, I guess. So about 4 or 5 months later, I finally got into it. Was going strong, got out a little bit, trying to get back in, work balance and get back in there. But, I really enjoy it. And, I come in at about 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, and work out with this guy and try to get him to come over and work out with us. But, the best thing I can talk about, like jiu-jitsu and getting back to what we do is, one, cardio, and then just learning new skills, honing your skills, and being better prepared. But mostly, it's an hour of mental health. And I get to roll around for an hour and not think about anything other than jiu-jitsu and Carlos, trying to choke me out. So that's,
Well, that's the good thing. When you first start, I think it starts off therapeutic because you're so miserable with people trying to squeeze your head off your shoulders. You're not thinking about any of your other problems. It's just my neck hurts so bad and it's going to hurt even worse tomorrow. That's all you're thinking about. But then as you kind of start to get better, and this is strictly observational because God knows it hasn't happened to me yet. Once you start to get better and your conditioning catches up and you're not just wondering if you're going to be the first guy to die in a department jiu-jitsu program anymore, you can start to actually learn and apply stuff, and it's a completely different type of therapeutic.
Yeah, I find it very therapeutic, And and I always tell all the guys, and am I the oldest one there? I think so. Yes. So I think there might be one more. I don't know. Somebody just joined. It might be close. But I know Chief Leonard, thanked me for coming because he wasn't the oldest anymore. So that was his big reason for having me.
Just to give you credit where credit's due, I mean, being the oldest when you're the black belt and you're the instructor.
Oh, yeah.
That's one thing. To be the oldest or even, the top quarter of the oldest when you're starting out and just being willing to kind of take that step and, I forget exactly how old you are. I don't want to call you out.
I'm 56.
Right. You're 56 years old and you're willing to come start an entirely new journey that a lot of younger men, arguably lesser men, won't even attempt.
I was wondering where he was going to, get your hand on my shoulder.
That speaks volumes, it's not just the way you do your job, but the kind of the way you approach life in general. I think it's awesome.
I appreciate that. So yeah, and I try. I mean, I'm glad to see where the program's grown. I think I showed up. I had been out I got hurt not doing jiu-jitsu. Oddly enough, KD hurt me, but it was actually doing.
Just getting in the end of it.
It wasn't his fault, but he made me sprint. So at 56 years old, taking up sprinting is not that great either. But no, we just got finished with a workout one day, and I kind of tightened up my calf. So, I think that was the first time in my life that I sat back and said, you know what, I'm not doing anything for a couple weeks. Showed up for work every day, but so I'm just going to take a time and not do anything for a couple weeks, and that's hard for me because with pains, I'll still show up and do what I got to do. Yeah. So, but it's been good, and the program now has grown. I think I walked in one day and there was like almost 30 people in there just from GP.
Yeah.
So
I was there that day, and that because it's fairly recently, right? Like 3 weeks.
I was going to say in this past month.
That was my first time back in a while, and I knew I was just going to be getting my butt whooped because my conditioning was crap. But then there's so many people, you have to take a break, and I just walked in. And I was like, yes. It's like I'm going to get to breathe today.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it's been a journey, man, and I'm trying to get back. And I appreciate all the guys that are there, taking it not easy on me. And
man, I always appreciate the guys who like Chief Leonard or Elon that are so good that I know it can't be fun to roll with us because they're just like, I'm going to sit here and get all sweaty and grapple with this guy they're not benefiting from it. There's no possible way they are.
Yeah.
So I always find that really impressive that they spend the time doing that instead of going to a gym with more of their own peers as far as skill level is concerned.
Yeah, I think it's more the achievement and the journey for them.
Yeah.
To watch you grow. I started rolling with Chief Leonard before he was a chief. He was a blue belt with Joe, and I rolled a couple times, and again, schedules didn't dictate it, man. And then the next thing I know, I'm back, and they're brown and black belts.
Right.
So it's been a minute, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not a quick journey, but yeah, I mean, I'm not going to give it up. So I'm still recruiting.
Yeah. All right.
I think tomorrow at 9:30.
Okay. I'll be there.
All right.
Talking about y'all's position with our department a little bit. Some things we always talk to people about is like something embarrassing, typically that happened to you in your career, but specifically to y'all's position. Not necessarily just embarrassing, like we told Courtney and Emily, but I imagine you see some wild stuff. We're dealing with mental health exclusively, or nearly exclusively. Is there anything that just jumps out at you as like, holy crap, I can't believe that was real life?
It's become normal now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think of one, man. I really can't. I was joking around the other day. I said, every time we used to bring somebody to jail, you go through a questionnaire. And, do you hear voices? Do you hear this? And not to make fun of anything or light of it. And now everybody I talk to, I really start watching, and I'm like, they're experiencing this trauma.
Right.
And that's why I tried to change my ways. As being a young cop, we did stupid things, looked at things different. And I'm even trying to change that now where you got to look at it for what it is. But I can't I know as soon as I walk out of here, something will come to mind, but I can't think of one that just sticks
once
out.
we turn the recording off, y'all will tell the story that you both thought like, when you looked at each other. And
we're just trying to
see
think
if
of
he had
something
one.
that's, it's not going to shed light on someone's.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, probably more success stories than anything,
I think just the randomness in like when we show up on a call, we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Like, and that's typical for most patrol calls as well. But with the stuff we do, like, we don't know what we're going to see inside. We don't know what we're going to experience, and there's been times where we're doing a follow up and it ends with me changing a light bulb for an 80-year-old lady who's got a son with schizophrenia. And an adult son, like in his 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
But
she just wants us to change the light bulb. So
you didn't change it once, though.
I changed it numerous times.
Same light bulb. She kept handing the other one back every time we went.
It was just an exchange of two different light bulbs.
Putting the different light bulbs.
That's what she needed, and that's us showing up and doing that, and whether
it's
or
a lot
not
of patience.
Yeah.
I don't know that I had the patience.
Well, my problem at first, and I've gotten better with it. It's not completely solved. I think most of it is I used to try to bring a lot of logic into mental health, and I was just crashing and burning myself out with like trying to bring logic to situations.
Right.
And Emily and Courtney and even Greg were saying, you can't do that. You can't bring logic to this, some of the things that we come across because there's no logic in it.
Right.
It's, they're experiencing, mental health crisis. And watching someone, bounce from one subject to the next and just trying to, I couldn't understand why someone just wouldn't take their medication.
Yeah. Yeah. To us, it doesn't make sense, but it's disheartening to see a family, go through this. I had this conversation recently, right, with a mom, because of her son starting to experience this stuff at the age of like 20. And I think when I first got into it and started learning, schizophrenia setting in around like 17 to 24. And, I was like, what?
I remember when I learned that, I was like 22, 23 years old, and I was like, I cannot imagine if I just woke up one day. And
So and as a parent, because yesterday everything was fine. Your son or daughter, man, is in school, college. They're all this, and all of a sudden, something happened. I don't, I can't explain it, but something happened, and now you wonder, did they take some type of drug that did it, or was it just some chemical imbalance in the brain that set them off? And now how do you deal with that? Your loved one was there yesterday. And I think that's the most disheartening part of it. But I guess the upfilling part of it is trying to help them. And then every now and then you come across one where you've helped somebody, and got them the help they need. I think I don't want to give away too much, man. Like I said, somebody came to me one day and had talked about a friend, and their friend was perfectly normal. And this individual, the friend's like 40-something years old, right? So we're not in that stage anymore.
Right.
Never had a problem, never did anything. And, of course, I'm the cop, right? They didn't go talk to Courtney or anybody else with the knowledge that they needed. And I'm sitting back thinking of one little thing, and I looked at them and I was like, when's the last time, it was a female, so, the person, someone, when's the last time they went to the doctor? Mm-hmm. And they're looking at me like, what? I'm like, well, if they have a urinary tract infection, then it could possibly cause psychosis. And they went to their friend, and it's typically an older individuals, right? So But they went to their friend and said, hey, go get a checkup. She went to the doctor and had a UTI, and bam, it was, I guess, it was over after she treated the deal. It has to do with the blood cells and everything in the brain. But yeah, so I mean, just be able to, that one moment of not really knowing what you're doing. Yeah. So,
Dr. Greg.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was what he was getting at earlier.
What's that?
The DJ
Oh,
name.
yeah.
Was,
That's part of it.
Yeah. Now there used to be a sign. They all laughed because I found a street sign. It was Dr. Disco was up behind my DJ booth.
DJ Dr. Disco.
So, you just pick up things. You got to throw it up there. But yeah, that's I can't really think of a funny moment because, like I said, it's not funny to begin with. But more of the challenging moments and more of the rewarding moments of getting somebody help and actually seeing them get help, and or talking to a close friend who has a family member and that has started experiencing that, and then help them and watch them come back to you and say thank you, but you didn't do anything, So,
and there's been times where we come across folks who are off their medication and they're the illness has taken over, consumed them, and then we'll check on them again, and night and day difference. They're on their meds, they're like smiling, like
totally
facial
different
expression,
person.
different, and it's like that's cool, it's that like gives us a nice warm and fuzzy, versus the nonstop back to back. Here's another person that's unfortunately not taking their meds.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and going back to what Greg was talking about with the young adult males, in that end of high school, college, military career, we've come across a lot of them that they'll come home from college or come home from the military with no explanation of why they're not in school anymore or why they got kicked out of school or military. And a lot of times it's because as the age of schizophrenia kicks in and they've been kicked out, but they won't tell their parents what happened. And their parents can't find out what happened because it's private.
Oh, yeah.
And just the frustration in that. And I think that's where that's very disheartening because their family just don't know what to do.
Right.
Because they don't, and then trying to encourage them to do what they can to try to be able to seek, help through the courts and trying to, do that, with the medical side of things, and so they can interact and have two-way conversations with doctors and stuff. And that's a long journey, and it costs money. So it's that's the biggest problem. Now, the laws hinder us a lot, with HIPAA and things like that. So you can't get them the need. You can't force it. In some countries, mandate medication. Mm-hmm. So for those who don't really realize how it's going to help them, then it gets mandated. So maybe they have a better chance at life, right? More normal life. And then, right now, waiting to see what happens in this legislation. The sad part is there's 50 states, and Texas is like number 48 for mental health funding.
Yeah, that's what Courtney, I believe, was saying.
Yeah. So, watching the news and legislation coming up right now, supposedly we're going to dump a bunch of money. Well, we dump it appropriately. That's one thing, right?
Yeah, that was part of the conversation we had too.
Yeah. So hopefully, the funding comes. But even that, we throw money at everything. If we don't logically do it and put the resources out there, build more hospitals to help individuals, throwing them in a hospital for a day for an evaluation, giving them some meds, kicking them back out, it's not getting them normal.
No.
Nope.
They're going to need time to stay in there for a week, a month. I'm not trying to institutionalize somebody, but what does it take for them to get to where they realize how the medication is working?
Right.
Yeah.
And, coming from a cop, not a mental health professional, right? So that's just my views on it is what can we do to get them there? And if it takes us taking them 3, 4, 5 times to go back and something happens, and they live a better life, then that's what we have to do. Right. So.
Well, Carlos has given me about 7 angry looks so far, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up here. Appreciate y'all sitting down, man.
Yeah.
No, it's a little different, a little out of the ordinary, but it's really appreciated. And hopefully somebody hears it, and especially somebody that's already in our profession kind of gets a different perspective and maybe encourages them to seek out some kind of
Yeah, we appreciate it.
If you need the help, go get it. Don't sit and watch. Please don't.
Did they plug our website or our brochure in the?
I have a website, man.
No,
go ahead.
The police website. If you go to the police website, There's a link in there for crisis support, and then there's our brochure that's in there.
Yeah, you get the crisis support and COPE unit, but
I didn't know that.
But yeah, but to the brothers and sisters out there, man, just from an old head, like you said earlier, and I say that all the time. I am the old head, but I don't want to be the old head that I had when I got here.
For sure.
Don't stop. You got to start pushing. We got to push more people into seeking the help they need and reach out when they need it, so they can have that long career, not 2 years in, 5 years in, and then explode internally. If they need it, come get it now, man. Don't resort to alcohol, everything else. We know, and we got to look out for each other. We start seeing somebody doing something they shouldn't be doing or drinking more than they should. Yep. We got to be able to stand up and say, "Hey, we get you some help." But
save some careers, save some marriages, save some families.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
All right, till next time.